All right, guys, welcome back to the Pocket Mads channel. It's Maddie here, and welcome back to Meta Monday, the weekly series where we analyze the Pokemon Pocket metagame and keep you guys up to date on everything going on in the competitive world of Pokemon Pocket. This past weekend was PMPT number 28. That's right, we've done 28 of these things. Shout out to all of the, the Discord moderators, the judges over at Limitless that make the tournament happen. Shout out to Jay for streaming, on the weekends, the tournament. It's incredible. We had, I think, like 400 people come out and play this weekend. So super, super cool. We're going to break down all of the top placing deck lists. We're going to take a look at the metagame tab, get into the data, crunch all of the numbers. We are pretty late in this season. I think this might be the 4th PMPT tournament of this season already. I don't remember. This is either the 3rd or the 4th. I think it's the 4th, actually. This week is going to be exciting. Of course, it's the last week of this ranked season, but also we should be getting an announcement about B3, the next full-sized expansion coming to Pokemon Pocket. There's been some leaks. There's been some rumors. We've heard Mega Lucario. We've heard Mega Sceptile, two of some of my favorite Pokemon, so it should be exciting. I think the next season's going to be very exciting. But anyway, let's dive right into it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Here is the final standings. By the way, there is no PMPT tournament open to play this weekend. It's actually the Season 2 Invitational Tournament. So, go ahead over on the Discord for all of the links to register if you are invited. It is the top 256 or so players on our season leaderboards. Basically, anybody with 8 points or higher will be invited to the tournament, and it's going to be a normal tournament structure. So we will be live streaming it this weekend, and it should flow just like a normal PMPT tournament. But I'm really, really excited about it. Anyway, let's get into the standings of what happened this past weekend. Desti from Germany getting first place with Suicune and Baxcalibur. This might be the first time Suicune and Baxcalibur has gotten first place at a PMPT tournament. We've seen Suicune win before, but ever since the Baxcalibur Chien-Pao thing came through, I think this might be the first time that Suicune's won one of our tournaments. So really cool. Great performance there, 12-0 basically, so an undefeated record if you don't count those 2 ties, which he probably ended day 1 with. So an incredible, basically undefeated record from Desti there. Second place is Zilla91 from the United States, 13-1 record playing the dual Charizard deck. So Charizard still definitely one of the stronger decks in the entire game. Does struggle a little bit into Suicune, so maybe an unfortunate matchup for Zilla there in Grand Finals, but Suicune, Charizard at the top of the standings, we're kind of in that zone right now. A lot less Hydreigon this weekend. I did tell people, I think on Friday, when I was talking about the best decks to play for Ranked, and I was kind of giving you my end of the week meta analysis, I really didn't think that Hydreigon was performing very well, and as we saw this weekend, it really did not perform that well. But Doug's from Brazil, 10-3 record. He was playing Greninja and Absol, so a dark Greninja deck making his way here into top 4. Third place, shout out to Doug's. And then in 4th place, we do see Altaria, and this is going to be the Dark Dreams, or Bad Dreams, Darkrai Altaria with Igglybuff. A deck that everybody should be pretty familiar with at this point. So 4 different decks in top 4, really all of the 4 different categories, I think, of like the metagame right now. You got water, you got fire, you got, dark with Greninja, and then, of course, and I think this deck is probably playing Chingling. It is, so we have a dark Greninja Chingling deck, and then we have Altaria, right? Mega Altaria, always up here in the standings, and this is definitely the most popular way people are playing Altaria. Shout out to Kaizo from Germany as well. Germany did pretty well. We even had 09 in 8th place from Germany, so 3 German top 8 performances, so shout out to them. 5th place, we have your boy Had playing Ninetales. So Ninetales finding its way here into top 8. Another Chien-Pao deck, very similar to Baxcalibur and Suicune. However, this is Ninetales instead of Suicune. A very fun deck. One of my favorite decks, really, over the last few seasons. Never been that popular, but, maybe now is when that changes, right? So a really fun off-meta deck, making it here into top 8. We had, what is this? Bousts from France. 6th place, also playing Suicune Baxcalibur. And then we had Jefe Tribal from Spain, 7th place, playing Charizard. So kind of like resets here. Like once we get into top 8, we see Suicune, Charizard, and Altaria once again. So the same sort of 3 decks. And then below him, like I said, or what was it? 09, playing Altaria. And then Mames in 9th place. So into top 16, we see another Mega Altaria. Now, Fiddy Paldus from Chile, 10th place, was playing Mega Manectric. So this is the highest placing Manectric list here in the standings. Manectric really, not that well represented high up in the standings. We do see 4 Hydreigon down here in top 16. So there were quite a few of Hydreigon players. They just didn't end up making it that far into bracket this weekend. Euphoric from Indonesia, 11th place is our highest placing Mega Hydreigon deck. And then we have Ted Lee from the United States, 12th place, and he was playing Mega Steelix. So get some metal type decks finding its way here into top 16, as well as a Scizor deck. This is Miss Pinguel? No, this player is very prominent, placing high all the time. I just can never pronounce the name, so I really apologize for that. From Argentina, though, our highest placing Mega Scizor, and I think this player's been playing Scizor all season, which is pretty cool. So lots of different decks here in top 16. Altaria with 3 representations, Suicune with 2 representations here, 2 of those being in top 8, 4 Hydreigons in top 16. We had a Steelix, we had a Scizor, a couple Charizards, Dark Greninja, and Alolan Ninetales. So an interesting top 16. Again, this is late season, so, it really kind of comes down to which decks people are playing. It really is kind of a free-for-all. Once these decks make it into day 2, it's really all about, kind of who draws the right cards, but also, who hits the right matchups throughout the bracket. Really any deck can kind of win. I would say that there are so many strong decks right now, so many good choices when it comes to choosing like top tier meta decks. If we go down a little bit, we did see there was a Dark Absol deck down here. This is without Greninja. This is with Bad Dreams. We had a Froggy X Momo playing Blaziken Greninja here in 23rd place. We had a Giratina Darkrai. This is Numatinale in 26th place. So shout out to these guys playing some also interesting decks. More Manectric as we go down. A few more Charizard, some Dark Greninjas. And then down here, DNT Nanu TCG from Italy, Guzzlord. So our highest placing Guzzlord right here. And then we had a Melmetal, Gerard Mentor from France, who ended up dropping, but 45th place. So shout out to him. And then a Kangaskhan. This is Froggy X Zorino. So shout out to the Froggy X guys for playing, interesting decks late in the season. It's definitely pretty cool to see. Froggy X oftentimes placing really well. One of the best group of players, I would say. Really cool. Definitely an interesting tournament in terms of the standings. Let's take a look at the deck lists. And then at the end, I am actually really curious about the metagame data. I haven't actually taken a look at it yet. So that's going to be very interesting to kind of tell us how things are trending going into this last week. Again, ranked is wrapping up soon. I know the Invitational is this weekend, but right after I think this Invitational, the next set is going to be releasing. So, or maybe it's like Sunday. I honestly forget, but we should be getting a trailer for it soon. I don't know if it's actually even been announced, but B3 is coming soon and the trailer should be coming out like this week, like Tuesday or Wednesday, I think. But anyway, let's take a look at these deck lists, guys. This is Dusty, the #1 placing deck list. Nothing too surprising here right off the bat. We do see one Copycat, one PCL, one Cyrus, double Research, double Pokeball, double Cape with the starting planes. Now, I know that PCL has definitely taken the place in this deck over Irida, and that's because of all of the sleep stuff, but I think Copycat might be interesting here. I'm trying to think. Do we oftentimes see the one Copycat in the Suicune deck? Sometimes we do. I just don't know if like this season Copycat's been that popular. I know a lot of times people playing like one Sabrina, one Cyrus. There's definitely a lot of cards you could swap for Copycat. Copycat's still one of the more relevant cards in the game. And it's really nice for like the hand refresh, right? If you just happen to draw, like double back Excalibur, no rare candy, or vice versa, So even though it's a Suicune deck, I think Copycat's good. It's also going to be good in the mirror match. I think Mars is something that could find its way into this deck, but maybe the consistency for Copycat ended up being relevant enough for this player. And yeah, everything else here pretty standard. I mean, Suicune back Excalibur, definitely one of the strongest decks in the game. Once we take a look at the metagame tab, we might get a more, detailed reflection as to what's going on. One thing I do remember about Suicune and Xianpao and back Excalibur is that it traditionally had a really good matchup into Hydreigon. It was one of the few counter Hydreigon decks. So maybe if Hydreigon saw a ton of play this weekend, maybe there was some interaction there between Suicune and Hydreigon, right? So that's one thing to keep our eye on, but yeah, I mean, one of like the most prominent decks. I mean, Suicune is like kind of the GOAT of all time in Pokemon Pocket. And even though it's been a while, I think since Suicune's won a tournament, it's always been there. It's always been relevant. So really no surprise and really cool to see it get first place here. Let's take a look at Zilla's deck, who technically had the most wins this tournament with 13-1. I actually just want to take a look at Dusty's matchups real quick. So yeah, he tied against Manectric. That was his only Manectric matchup. And then actually tied against Harian, who was playing Alolan, Ninetales, and Suicune, which is pretty cool. But yeah, basically undefeated this tournament. Beat Hydreigon here. Only hit one Hydreigon. Beat the mirror match twice. Beat Altaria, Charizard, and Steelix. So hit basically every other top meta deck you could kind of think of, other than like maybe Dark Greninja with like Chingling. So maybe that was kind of a lucky break for Dusty here to not hit any of the Chingling Greninja decks. But anyway, let's take a look at Zilla here. So Zilla's deck, and this is the second place Charizard deck. We are playing double Ignition, so he's actually playing one of each Charmeleon. They're both Ignition. These are technically different cards, which is always confusing, but anyway. Also playing double Entei, double Charmander, and then one of each Charizard. There was some stuff going around early in the season where just, mostly Mega Charizard Y was prominent, but I think that, the deck is more well-balanced if you are playing one of each, and I think it also works really well with May, and May is just a really nice card in this particular type of deck when you're playing double middle evolutions and then one of each Mega Pokemon. I think May's really, really good. One Sabrina, one Cyrus. I got the PCL in there, one Rocky Helmet, and then double Pokeball, double Research, and one Copycat. So Suicune and Entei both playing Copycat in the deck. I guess it does just kind of make sense. Copycat is such a good card. I don't think you can really dispute playing it, even if you are playing one of the legendary Pulse Pokemon like Entei and Suicune. The Rocky Helmet is interesting. I actually think Rocky Helmet is extremely good with Mega Charizard X. Like, it really kind of helps you get above certain damage thresholds. You can even just like slap that onto the Entei, or like I said, if you go into Mega Charizard with the Rocky Helmet, you hit for 100, and then of course they're gonna attack you, and then you're gonna deal 20 more, and then it just sort of ends up working out. Rocky Helmet's not very relevant for Mega Charizard Y, but for Mega Charizard X, the 100 plus 180, plus the Rocky Helmet is gonna get over basically any deck that might be able to heal through a lot of that damage that Mega Charizard X can do. So I really like Rocky Helmet in the deck. I mean, Charizard also really strong. I think this season in particular, Charizard had some ups and downs. Mega Charizard X released in this expansion, I believe. Like, it's been like a kind of a new Pokemon. It was extremely relevant early this season, and then, mid-season it kind of fell away a little bit. But I think that it's going to continue to be one of the more relevant Pokemon moving forward. It's just such a strong card. And Ignition, Charmeleon with Entei and Flame Patch is just such an incredible package. I think Charizard has kind of this unique thing going for it that a lot of other decks just don't have. So I think we're going to continue to see Charizard a lot. Let's take a look at Doug's here from Brazil. This is Dark Greninja, one of my favorite decks to choose this season because it is playing Chingling. We know that I love Chingling, but I think Chingling's really well positioned. Unfortunately, I believe this player lost to Charizard. Yeah. And that's going to be tough. Lost to Gorgeist, that makes sense. And then actually lost to a Suicune Excalibur, but had a really decent spread throughout the tournament. I think Chingling is just a really, really, really good card. Whether it's against Hydreigon or the Excalibur decks, Chingling's going to be very useful. And I just think that, Dark Greninja is probably the #1 deck that even uses Chingling right now. There's really not that many. Altaria has abandoned Chingling to play the Igglybuff Darkrai stuff, and maybe for good reason, because that is kind of a broken strategy. But, Darkrai pings plus Chingling plus Rocky Helmet, really, really good. I think that Chingling item lock is still going to be relevant moving forward. Right now, we're seeing things like Charizard, which don't play Rare Candy, and there are some other prominent decks in the game, like Manectric, that don't play Rare Candy and stuff. So Chingling, it might not be as relevant right now as it has been in the past, but I think Chingling will definitely be relevant moving forward, just by the nature of it's our best option for doing what it does. And like I said before, double Copycat, double Research, double Pokeball with the Hiking Trail and Rare Candy Greninja, right? This entire combo here. We're seeing this Hiking Trail in a lot of Rare Candy decks. Suicune doesn't play it, but Hydreigon plays it. Dark Greninja plays it. I think that it's a really good card in a lot of these different decks. And yeah, I mean, Dark Greninja, it's really is the Chingling deck this season, which is why I kind of identify with it pretty strongly. But shout out to Doug's. I think if this had gone the other way, right? If Doug's had paired up against Destiny in top 4, might have been able to get over the Suicune Excalibur with the Chingling, might have, been able to get into Grand Finals and have a chance to win it here. But as it paired up, Suicune ended up hitting Kaizo, which is Altaria, and then Charizard hit Dark Greninja. So you never really know. It's luck of the draw. You don't know, what your opponent's going to be. And with the, how much diversity we have in day 2 with all of these different decks, you kind of have to get a little bit lucky in terms of hitting the right matchups. All right, Kaizo, 4th place from Germany. This is Bad Dreams, Altaria. Pretty much exactly how we know it. The double X-Speed in here. And it's interesting because this deck plays X-Speed. And I think it's fine to do that because the Dark Absol Bad Dreams deck that's not playing Greninja, they play double copies of Leaf, and the reason you play Leaf is because you're playing Darkrai EX. Now this deck list, if you look at all of the Pokemon you can lead off with, Igglybuff, which is what you want to lead with, or Swablu. Now this deck doesn't actually want Swablu in the active because you want that Altaria to be there in the late game. So the X speed allows you to free retreat into Igglybuff and get that turn 1 attack off, but also Darkrai. So yes, you could play Leaf in the deck, but Darkrai has a retreat cost of 2, and most of the time you're not going to lead off with Darkrai, and even if you do, if you go second, you can just attach. X speed and then retreat and still get that Igglybuff attack off. So because this deck kind of stalls out anyway, and you typically have a couple of turns to attack with Igglybuff, you don't really need Leaf. And I think that's really what comes down to it in this deck list. X speed just kind of makes more sense, makes some more room for trainer cards like Lycia, which is going to be super good in this deck, and then double Copycat, Sabrina Cyrus, PCL. This deck is really good. I think it won last week, so it's just, you know, one of the more toxic decks in the game, but also just one of the more consistent decks. Like, and consistent in the sense that, like, it's always going to achieve the board state it wants to, whether or not, you know, your opponent breaks out of sleep every turn or not. Obviously, that's inconsistent because of coin flips and everything. But the strategy getting to what you want to get to in this deck, Mega Altaria has always been one of the most consistent Pokemon in the game, which is why I think it's so good. And now you just have, you know, a really good combination. It's interesting. Like, out of all of the Bad Dreams decks, you know, Altaria just ended up being kind of the option that was best here. So another pretty standard list. We've seen it all season, but definitely quite good. Let's take a look at your boy Shahad. I don't know. But anyway, Ninetales. So this is kind of the resident interesting deck here at the top of the standings. And this is actually not going to be playing Baxcalibur, which is really cool. So I think the Ninetales Chimpao decks I've seen in the past are playing Baxcalibur. This deck playing double Misty with the new Aqua Turbo, Fion, and then Mantike with Inflatable Boat, Lucky Ice Pop. This is pretty cool. I like this. I like the concept of this. So, like, yes, you're not necessarily going to be able to get Chimpao up and running like super early, but, you know, if you lead Fion, if you lead Mantike, you're going to be cool. The thing about Alolan Ninetales is it has access to Alolan Vulpix with Call Forth Cold. And this is a Pokemon that can generate energy to itself. So if you do go second, you know, you are going to be able to kind of get that Ninetales up and running on turn 2, and then any subsequent energy you have can go to the Chimpao with Misty, maybe subsequently, you know, buffering more energy throughout the game if we get lucky on the coin flip. So, you know, it's a strong deck. Ninetales is a strong Pokemon. It stops your opponent from being able to attach energies, right? So you can trap Pokemon in the active spot, and that's a really big deal. It's a really big deal for Ninetales. It only does 80 damage, but it's somewhat bulky, 150 HP. You know, we have Inflatable Boat to give all of these Pokemon free retreat, other than Ninetales, I guess. But if not, you know, that's you don't have to evolve, right? So, yeah, I mean, I like the deck. I think Ninetales is kind of a disrespected Pokemon. I get it. Suicune is out there, so everybody's just going to play Suicune. We all know Chimpao is absolutely broken. Nobody's really playing Protective Poncho, but Chimpao is super, super good. The Fion is interesting to me. It does 10 damage. And also generates an energy. So you can play Manaphy. Manaphy, I think, has less HP, but it doesn't deal damage, but it generates 2 energies, 1 to each bench Pokemon. So it's interesting. The choice to play the Fion is interesting, besides just maybe playing double Mantike, you know? It's definitely an interesting choice, but I really like it. I like Ninetales. A very cool deck, you know? A very cool deck. Definitely kind of the outlier. Excuse me. I'm still sick. I tried. I did my best. I made it so far in the video without coughing. We're not going to edit it, though. I'm sorry. We don't edit on the channel. But anyway, we have Boust here, who is playing Suicune Baxcalibur. I'm going to skip down. Maybe these decks are different, but I just want to skip down to like a different archetype. Let's take a look at Fittipaldis from Chile, and this is going to be Manectric. So again, no Manectric super high in the standings this week, which is interesting. We see the Big Malasada. So double Lucky Ice Pop, 1 Pokemon Center Lady, Big Malasada. So this is a deck that definitely does not want to lose to Bad Dreams. Let's take a look at the matchups here. It did indeed beat both of the Altaria Igglybuff matchups. It lost 1 game here to Guzzlord and then lost to Charizard. And Charizard is probably going to be a tough one for Manectric. I just would imagine it is. The thing about Manectric is it's got fast pace. You know, it can get early damage off on the board, but unfortunately Entei is kind of tanky, right? So, you know, even if you get through the Entei, you know, are you really going to be able to kind of deal with the Charizard? Like, probably not, right? And that's really what Charizard does best. You know, it just KOs other Megas, and Manectric there is definitely a deck that's going to get hard countered by Charizard. So unfortunately, you know, a couple of Charizards high up in the standings, he hit one of them, wasn't able to win, but I love the double, you know, status condition healing tech here with Lucky Ice Pop. It's definitely pretty cool. The Lucky Ice Pop is not going to help you into like the Charizard stuff, but in a lot of other things, it's going to be quite relevant. You have 180 HP. So, you know, there's going to be times where, like, you know, getting lucky on those lucky ice pops and just keeping Manectric alive is going to be a really solid strategy. It's kind of what a lot of these Manectric decks are leaning towards. Pacing, being a fast-paced deck, being really consistent because Mega Manectric is really consistent, and then just getting lucky on ice pop coin flips, just like we kind of sometimes used to play with Belly Bolt back in the day. But yeah, there's Manectric here in 10th place, and then our highest placing Hydreigon deck in 11th place, and this is going to be a Poison Barb Nihilego version, Hiking Trail. We got one lucky ice pop in here, one PCL, so they've decided to split the difference here. Again, the sleep decks are prominent, but everything else in here is pretty standard. Not playing the Sabrina, playing one Cyrus, double Poison Barb, and then the Nihilego double copycat with the Hiking Trail and rare candies like we saw before. It's Hydreigon, guys. I'm curious to see how it did this weekend when we take a look at the data. Lost to Dark Greninja. As we know, Chingling is going to definitely affect Hydreigon pretty prominently. Lost to Dark Greninja twice, unfortunately, and also lost to Suicune. And those are going to be the tough matchups. That might be a big reason why Hydreigon hasn't been doing very well. Maybe more Dark Greninja seeing play, but Suicune back Excalibur certainly very popular. And to be honest, those were the only 3 bad matchups that he hit all tournament, and those were the only 3 that I guess Altaria Greninja probably should also be a tough matchup. But he ended up winning against Yummy Boat. Yummy Boat. Yeah, Hydreigon, man, it's still really, really good. 12th place is going to be Ted Lee and its Mega Steelix. I don't think this will have many surprises here. Yeah, not too many. He is actually playing one PCL, which I don't remember Steelix playing PCL. Maybe they did. But yeah, it's the lucky ice pop, heavy helmet, and DD combo stuff. You know what I mean? I think Mega Steelix, honestly, is like one of the core reasons that we don't see Oricorio anymore. Like, it was kind of funny. Like, the Oricorio stuff just wasn't helpful. Steelix has been a very, very prominent deck this entire season. It's actually been one of the top decks. And I get you lose to Charizard. Why? But I mean, other than that, this thing kind of does well into mostly everything. It's one of my favorite decks. It's unique. It's kind of the only deck that does what it does. Like, there are some other like tank decks in the game, but even Guzzlord right now is kind of playing like aggro with Naganadel. So like Indeedee really only finding its way into Steelix decks with, of course, Lucky Ice Pop, Heavy Helmet, and just being all about sustain. It's a very unique thing about Steelix. But yeah, there you go. Very cool. I'm glad to see Steelix at least in top 16. And not only that, we had a Mega Scizor in top 16. Let's take a look at Mega Scizor here. Playing a Pichu, so kind of going a little turbo mode on our Scizor, kind of a spicy deck. I really like Mega Scizor. I think it's kind of underrated. Unfortunately, though, just not as well positioned this season as you would have kind of hoped it to be. But it's certainly an incredibly strong Pokemon. Bullet Slugger with Training Arena, Reverum, you're hitting for 160. 160 is a really solid number. It's just unfortunately, a lot of Mega Pokemon just don't care. Like, you're not KOing a lot of the Megas or any of them for that matter. So it doesn't feel as good as maybe it should. But it's certainly a very, very strong deck. I think Metal Core Barrier is cool. This is one of the only decks that can really utilize Metal Core Barrier. The strategy is you kind of use Revavroom, you go into Scizor, you attach the Core Barrier, you hit for 150 or 160, and then, you kind of tank the damage, and then you kind of retreat back out or double pivot. But unfortunately, again, Charizard will just one-hit KO you, and then Suicune back Excalibur is going to, with Chimpao, is going to be able to just hit around you, which is always kind of tough. So I like Scizor. It's really fun. It's one of my favorite new strategies in the game. It's just unfortunately not as good or as well positioned as it kind of needs to be a top tier contender, but a really fun deck. Playing one copy of Red as well, so you can kind of come in Training Arena. You're hitting for 180. We're hitting that 180 number here, which is pretty impressive. Like, I wonder if this player was able to kind of sit and just hit somebody for 180. I guess he did lose to Manectric, which is tough. I wonder if that 180 number did come in clutch. I know Altaria has 190, but we are hitting for weakness. So maybe with the red is to KO Altarias. We did go, we lost the first game, but we beat an Altaria here up here, and then we also beat one in top 32. So maybe that red was very relevant into Altaria. Who knows? Not I, but very cool nonetheless. So shout out to all of these players. Shout out to you guys for playing this weekend. A fun season. It's gone on a little bit long. I think we're ready for the next, the next metagame, the next refresh, but it's been a fun season. Let's take a look at the metagame tab, because I like the data. We got to get a full, real understanding of what's going on this weekend. And let's take a look at this metagame tab. Yeah, okay. So this answers some questions for me. Hydreigon was the most played deck, 14% of the meta share, actually had a 55% win rate, 54% win rate. So a very good performance for Hydreigon, but we didn't see many of them that high in the standings. And again, that kind of goes to show like the whole story. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. That's why we take a look at the data. You know, Hydreigon, not anywhere really in top 8 at all, but was technically the most successful deck this season. In fact, it really wasn't even counterplayed that heavily. Had a 54% win rate. Let's take a look at these matchups here. Even against the Hydreigon, of course, it was beating Manectric pretty easily, losing to Sleep Altaria, losing to Suicune Excalibur, but beating Steelix and Charizard, but also losing to Dark Greninja. Okay, so very interesting. What about against... Okay, was also beating Greninja... Altaria here. Were these people playing Chingling? They were. Okay, that's interesting. Anyway, yeah, okay. So I think that's what kind of happened with Hydreigon. I think it kind of farmed the Manectric decks and then lost to Suicune and Igglybuff. It was kind of beating everything other than the things that specifically counter it, right? So, you know, Dark Greninja does really well. Dark Greninja had a 58% win rate this weekend, and I think that's because it was just tremendously well positioned in a lot of these decks here at the top, specifically Hydreigon, which is pretty cool. Suicune actually struggled here. It had about a 50% win rate, but its matchup into Hydreigon is quite good. Had a 71% matchup in Hydreigon, but I guess just really lost to like a lot of other things. I don't really know what it was losing to. Lost to Dark Greninja, lost to I don't even know. What was it losing to? Just kind of just like random decks. Lost to Melmetal. I guess 8 and 17. So it missed a lot of rounds. Okay, so this data isn't that relevant actually for Suicune, at least the win percentage, because Suicune was actually pretty well positioned this weekend and did well. It got first place. But Manectric, about another 50% win rate. So, you know, a couple of these top decks kind of going 50-50. You know, struggling into Hydreigon, actually didn't even have a winning matchup into Suicune, but beat Charizard, which is crazy, 9 and 7, but 13 and 1 into Bad Dreams Altaria. So seemingly Manectric going to be really good. It's probably with that promo Manectric going to be really good into Sleep Altaria. Good into Dark Greninja as well. Really good into really all of the dark decks, which is crazy. 0 and 5 into Steelix. That does make a lot of sense. So an interesting matchup spread here. The data is very, very interesting. Sleep Altaria went 92 and 85, so had a pretty decent run. Charizard, you know, below about a 46% win rate. That's just always where Charizard sits for some reason. It always has a chance to go high in the standings, but I think losing to not only Suicune and Excalibur, but also Hydreigon and also Altaria is probably not a great look for Charizard, but it did kind of get into grand finals, so that's what Charizard does, you know? It just can win games. It's just a very, very strong deck. Kind of pub stomps, though. Just kind of gatekeeps a lot of these non-meta decks, which is hilarious. 5-0 into Melmetal, 4-1 rather into Dark Absol, and then 3-1 into Scizor. So yeah, just doing quite well. 5, 6, and 2. Two of these players lost to Steelix somehow, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, shout out to Charizard, man. You gotta love the old Charizard action. One of my favorites. Anything else? Let's filter by win rate. Anything surprising? So the one Alolan Ninetales player, definitely a big outlier, and then Dark Greninja here. So this was the only kind of popular deck that was extremely successful this weekend. Dark Greninja, shout out to Chingling, just ending up being super good. You know, who would have thought? Who would have thought Chingling was a top tier card in the metagame? You know what I mean? Just massively disrespected. Somebody played Ampharos, someone 4 and 3. This man's my hero here, right here. Fennekin. Shout out to them, dude. Incredible. Guzzlord went 13 and 9. The 3 people that played it. Melmetal went 19 and 14. So shout out to these Melmetal players. Something we might highlight on Wednesday. And then yeah, Hydreigon. So I mean, in terms of overall success, we got Dark Greninja probably because of Chingling, Hydreigon because it's ridiculous, and then Sleep Altaria also because it's kind of ridiculous. Everything else, though, you know, pretty just normal, about 50%. You know, nothing too crazy. Definitely Manectric and Suicune kind of just floating around 50%. You know, not incredibly well positioned, but not poorly positioned at all. Just really solid decks in the metagame. And then, of course, Charizard is here. Charizard is here. Altaria and Greninja struggled, though. So Altaria, Greninja struggled, Steelix struggled, and Scizor struggling. So those are decks that maybe just aren't that well positioned at the moment. But yeah, definitely interesting. So at least kind of coming out of this week, it looks like Dark Greninja's the top dog. Hydreigon's still very, very good, but kind of counterplayed by Sleep, Altaria, and Dark Greninja. So that's important to understand. And then, yeah, you can play Manectric, you can play Suicune. Definitely solid decks as we see Suicune won this weekend. So those are going to be just good decks just in general, right? Interesting. Cool. All right, guys. Well, that's Meta Monday. That's the last kind of real, well, I guess, yeah, probably the last Meta Monday of the season. Am I wrong? I might be wrong about that. We'll have to see when the new set releases, because maybe we'll do a Meta Monday after the Invitational tournament this weekend, of course. But if the new set's coming out, then that's what we'll make videos on, you know? So I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. But thank you guys so much for watching and competing. I'm absolutely blessed that we have the community that we have, and we still have so many people that are playing Pokemon Pocket and competing. It's a really fun game. I understand, you know, there's a cycle, you know, to Pokemon Pocket, like every month, right? It's like new cards come out every month, and then, you know, the first couple of weeks are really hype, and then the end of the season, people are playing ranked, and maybe they're playing other games, or they're waiting for the new set to come out. So there's just this like constant up and down that a Pokemon Pocket has, and we're definitely toward the ends of the season, so we're gonna have to just wait for B3 to come out. I'm really excited. Mega Lucario sounds pretty crazy. Don't forget to check out the Champion Mads channel. If you're interested in Pokemon Champions content, we're going to be uploading there every other day, as we are here on the Pocket Mads channel. And yeah, guys, there it is. Cool. All right. Peace out, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you guys next time. We'll see you on Wednesday. And yeah. Bye.